Ever wondered how to learn CSS quickly and effectively? Well, you've come to the right place. Let's start with the basics. CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets, is a language used by web developers to describe how a web page should look. It's the stylist of the web, the fashion designer of your browser, dictating everything from the color of your text to the layout of your content. You see, when you're building a web page, you start with HTML. Think of HTML as the structure of a house. It lays out where the walls, floors, and ceilings go. But a house isn't a home until you've added some style, right? This is where CSS comes in. It's the interior decorator of the web, deciding whether your text should be red or blue, if your images should float to the left or right, and whether your menus should be at the top, bottom, or side of the page. The beauty of CSS is that it separates content from design. This means you can change the entire look and feel of a website just by tweaking its CSS without altering its HTML structure. It's like being able to redecorate your house without having to knock down any walls. But CSS is not just about making things pretty, it's also about improving user experience. With CSS, you can create responsive designs that adapt to different screen sizes, ensuring that your website looks great whether it's viewed on a desktop, tablet, or smartphone. So where does CSS fit into web development? Well, it's one of the three pillars of front-end web development along with HTML and JavaScript. If HTML is the skeleton and JavaScript is the brains, then CSS is the skin and clothes of your web page, making it visually appealing and user-friendly. In the upcoming scenes, we'll dive deeper into the syntax, selectors, and box model of CSS. We'll also explore various real-life examples to give you a hands-on understanding of how to use CSS in your web development projects. With a clear understanding of what CSS is, you're ready to dive into the world of coding with style. Ready to write your first CSS code? Start by understanding the syntax. Let's dive right in. CSS syntax is made up of three main parts: selectors, properties, and values. Think of it as a simple sentence. The selector is the subject, the property is the verb, and the value is the object. Selectors are the HTML elements you want to style. For example, if you want to change the color of all paragraphs on your web page, P would be your selector. Next, we have properties. These are what you want to change about the selector. In our previous example, if we're changing the color of our paragraph text, color would be the property. Finally, we have values. This is the change you want to make. If you want your paragraph text to be blue, blue would be the value, so putting it all together, your CSS would look like this. P, color, blue. Now you might be wondering what those curly braces and that semicolon are doing there. Well, the curly braces encapsulate the property and value pairs that you want to apply to the selector. The semicolon, that's just a way of separating different property and value pairs. So if you want to change both the color and the font of your paragraph text, your CSS would look like this. P, color, blue, font family, Arial. But wait, there's more. Comments are a vital part of any coding language, and CSS is no exception. Comments are used to explain your code, and they can be really helpful when you're working on a big project or collaborating with others. In CSS, you can add a comment by wrapping it in. So if you want to remind yourself why you made your paragraph text blue, you could write P, color blue. Mastering CSS syntax is the first step to becoming proficient in styling web pages. Practice makes perfect, so keep coding. Selectors are the power tools of CSS. They determine which elements to style. Imagine walking into a hardware store looking for a specific tool. The store is filled with options, but you need only one specific tool to get your job done. That's what CSS selectors are, the right tool to select the exact HTML element you need to style. Let's start with the most basic selector, the element selector. This is like the one-size-fits-all tool. When you use an element selector, you're telling your CSS to apply a certain style to every instance of a particular HTML element on your page. For example, if you want all your paragraphs to be a certain color, you'd use the paragraph element selector P. Next up, we have class selectors. Think of these as your multi-tool. They allow you to apply styles to any HTML element with a specific class attribute. This gives you the power to style different elements in the same way, without being limited to one specific type of element. And then we have ID selectors, the specialized tools of CSS. These are used to select and style a single unique element on your page. It's like picking out a specific tool for a specific task. Remember, each ID must be unique, so use them sparingly and wisely. But what happens when there's a clash? What if you've styled an element using both a class selector and an ID selector? This is where the concept of specificity comes into play. In CSS, specificity is like the tool hierarchy. If there's a conflict, the more specific selector will win out. In general, ID selectors are more specific than class selectors, which in turn are more specific than element selectors. So, there you have it. The world of CSS selectors at your fingertips. From the basic element selector to the unique ID selector, with the versatile class selector in between. And don't forget about specificity. It's the tiebreaker when styles clash. Selectors offer a powerful way to target and style your HTML elements. Remember, specificity determines which styles apply when there's a conflict. Ever wondered how CSS controls the layout of your web page? Meet the CSS box model. Think of each element on your web page as a box. Quite literally, a box. This is the cornerstone of the CSS box model, a fundamental concept in web design. Each of these boxes has four main components: content, padding, border, and margin. Let's break these down. First up, the heart of the box, the content. This is where your text, images, or other media live. The dimensions of the content box can be manipulated using the width and height properties in CSS. Next, we have padding. Padding is the space that cushions your content within the box. It's like bubble wrap for your text and images, giving them some breathing room. You can adjust the padding with CSS to increase or decrease this space. Then we have the border. The border surrounds the padding and content, functioning as the walls of the box. It can be styled in various ways with CSS, allowing you to control its color, width, and style. Lastly, we have the margin. Think of the margin as personal space for your box. It's the area outside the border that separates your box from other elements on the page. By adjusting the margin, you can control the distance between elements on your web page. Now let's talk about how boxes are displayed. In CSS, elements are either displayed as block or inline. Block elements, like paragraphs and headings, always start on a new line and take up the full width available. Inline elements, on the other hand, only take up as much width as necessary and do not start on a new line. The CSS box model is not just about understanding these boxes and their components, but also about understanding how these boxes interact with each other and how they behave within the context of the entire web page. Understanding the box model is key to mastering CSS layout. It's all about controlling the space around your elements. You've made great strides in your journey to learn CSS. Let's recap what we've covered. We started with the basics, understanding the role of CSS in web development. Now we know that CSS, or cascading style sheets, is a powerful tool that developers use to style and lay out web pages. This language is what makes the web not just functional but also visually appealing and user-friendly. Next, we delved into the nitty-gritty of CSS syntax. We learned that a CSS rule set consists of a selector and a declaration block. The selector points to the HTML element to style, while the declaration block contains one or more declarations separated by semicolons. Each declaration includes a CSS property name and a value, separated by a colon. It's like giving your HTML elements a makeover, one attribute at a time. Then we explored the world of CSS selectors. We understood that selectors are the means by which we select and manipulate HTML elements. Whether it's the simple type selector, class and ID selectors, or more advanced selectors like attribute and pseudoclass selectors, each plays a crucial role in pinpointing the elements we want to style. We also took a deep dive into the CSS box model. This is the layout module that CSS uses to design and lay out web pages. It encompasses margins, borders, padding, and the actual content. The box model is like the skeleton of your web page, determining how elements interact and fit together on the screen. Looking forward, we're going to continue this journey by delving into more advanced CSS techniques. We'll explore concepts like CSS animations and transitions, Flexbox and Grid. We'll also introduce you to popular CSS frameworks like Bootstrap and Tailwind CSS, which can speed up your web development process and make your websites look professional with minimal effort. Keep practicing, keep learning, and soon you'll be styling web pages like a pro. See you in the next video.